We begin today the Gemara on Daf Mem Aleph, 7 lines down from the top of the Yomud where it says Lepar. So the Gemara here is in the middle of discussing a pasuk that it says in Parshas Vayikra. The entire pasuk from the beginning till the end is all extra. What's the context of this inyan? In the parsha there, first it says the din of the par kohen Mashiach, a kohen that has to bring a carbon. Then the next parsha is called the parsha of par helim dover shel tzibur. When the Bezdin Paskin and all of Klal Yisrael followed this psak din of Bezdin, B'shoigig and did an Aveda, there's also a carbon, a par, for a chatas for that. In both of the parshas, it says all the details of the halachas of the carbon. Besides one detail, which Gemara is going to point out soon, but more or less, in both parshas, it says all the details. And then, in the second parsha of the par helim dover shel tzibur, there's a pasuk where it says, V'osa lapar, kasher osa lapar achatas, you should do for this par, which is the par helim davar, like what it says in the previous parsha, which is the par kohen Mashiach. The entire pasuk is extra, because it already says all the details. So the Gemara before brought a brayse that darshaned all the details of this pasuk. Now here in the Gemara, we're going to discuss a brayse that the Gemara brought before, which is Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. Rabbi Shmuel says how you teach, again it says, V'osa lapar, kasha osa lapar achatas. What are these two words of par in this pasuk? So Rabbi Shmuel darshaned as follows. Let's see. Zak the Gemara. Rabbi Shmuel darshans lepar means ze par helim dover shel tzibur. That word lepar here is coming to teach the halacha regarding the par helim dover shel tzibur. That's what it's adding. Frag the Gemara, what's the chiddush here? Habetzibur gufei ksiv. This pasuk is in the parsha where it speaks about the par helim dover shel tzibur. We're looking to figure out what this extra pasuk is adding to something else, to something new. So how is he answering and saying, oh, this word lepar is telling me to do for this par here? That we know. So the Gemara explains, Omer Rav Papa, so Rav Papa says that it's necessary to darshan extra time for par helim dover shel tzibur for the following reason. Mishom the boy yagmure par helim dover shel tzibur b'yiseres ushtei kloyois. We want to learn out the halacha of the par helim dover shel tzibur, that you should apply also the details about bringing the yiseres and shtei kloyois to be makriver on the mizbeach. The yiseres, this is parts of the animal that's burnt on the mizbeach. The yiseres, I think, is called the diaphragm, and the shtei kloyois is the two kidneys. So those two details, yiseres and shtei kloyois, if you look there in the parsha where it speaks about the par kohen Mashiach, the Torah spells it out that the yiseres and shtei kloyois should be burnt on the mizbeach. Now in this parsha of the par helim dover shel tzibur, it doesn't say clearly that the yiseres and the shtei kloyois should be burnt on the mizbeach. Now we want to compare from the par helim dover shel tzibur to where? To now our third place, to l'seirei avodas kechavim, to the goat that's brought by avodah zarah, which is actually a parsha in Parshas Shalach, where there it says that when a person serves avodah zarah, you bring a goat. And there as well, by seirei avodas kechavim, it doesn't clearly say that you should bring on the mizbeach the yiseres and the shtei kloyos. So from where are we going to learn out? Over there, by the side of avodas kechavim, that you have to burn the yiseres and shtei kloyos. So as the Gemara is going to bring soon, there's a hekish to compare from the side of avodah zarah to the par helim dover shel tzibur. That's the hekish. Now the problem is, by par helim dover shel tzibur itself, it doesn't clearly say that you should burn the yiseres and shtei kloyos on the mizbeach. How do you know it? So as the Gemara here says, "Upar helim dover shel tzibur begufei lo ksiv." By the par helim dover shel tzibur, it doesn't say clearly that you should burn the yiseres and shtei kloyos on the mizbeach. Behakesh asi. You only learn it from a hekish from the parsha before that it says by the par kohen Mashiach. So now the question is, here there's a rule. The Gemara now is going to reference this rule regarding the limudim by kochim. That when you have something that you know regarding one parsha, regarding one halacha, only based on a hekish, now you can't then go and make a secondary hekish and compare it to another place, because the whole halacha you knew lechatchila is only from a hekish. Okay, so over here, let's apply it over here to this case. We have three different karbanos here. Par kohen Mashiach, par helim dover shel tzibur, and the third one is the side of avodah zarah. And what's the detail we're trying to learn out? This halacha of burning the yiseres and shtei kloyos on the mizbeach. Where does it say befeirish? Only by number 1, by the par kohen Mashiach. And then from there we have a hekish to number 2, which is the par helim dover shel tzibur. And now we want to learn out another hekish from number 2 to number 3, to the par to the sar, that is, to the side of Avodah Zarah. The rule is, if in number 2 you only know this halacha from a hekish, so you can't make any hekish from number 2 to number 3. That's the klal by kachim. So therefore we have a problem. How are we going to learn out the side of Avodah Zarah from number 2? Now you may think to yourself, so learn straight number 3 from number 1, but you can't. As Gemara will bring soon, the hekish is specifically in the lashon of the pasuk. There's only a hekish from the side of Avodah Zarah to the par helam davish al tzibur. Okay, so therefore, how do we solve this? So the Gemara will explain now how we solve this. Says the Gemara, par helam davish al tzibur begufe like by the par helam davish al tzibur itself, which is the number 2 here. It doesn't clearly say that you have to burn the yisteres and shtei klayos on the mizbeach. It's only learned with a hekish from the par kaya Mashiach. So therefore, it's tzarich lepar. This is what Rabbi Shmuel was saying, that the Torah wrote an extra word again, lepar, lemehevi kiman d'chsiv be begufe. Because the point there is, when the Torah writes twice the point that we're comparing the par helam davish al tzibur to the par kaya Mashiach, why is the Torah repeating it a second time? In order that it should be as if it's mefurish by par helam davish al tzibur. When the Torah compares something once, so then that's a hekish. It doesn't say here clearly, but I compared it to something else. When the Torah writes it a second time, it becomes like it's mefurish here itself. Just like we had Tilia, we learned in the Gemara that by kachim, anytime the Torah writes something twice, what's the point it's writing it twice for? La'akiv, to tell you that it's a must. When it says it the first time, it's la mitzvah. When it says it a second time, it's la'akiv. Now the Gemara is saying a different concept. When the Torah writes something once, so then there's a hekish. But hekish doesn't mean that it's explicit. When the Torah says a hekish a second time, it's coming to say that it should be as if it's explicit here. V'loy lehevi, so now will not be davar halamid behekish chayzer malamid behekish. You're not going to now say that by par helam davar shel tzibur doesn't say it explicitly. How could I use this as a source to now learn out to number 3, which is the side of Avodah Zarah? No, it's not that way. Because I have a second time the word lapar that makes the hekish, so it's like it says it explicitly by the par helam davar shel tzibur. Then I have the hekish to the side of Avodah Zarah. That's what Rabbi Shmuel meant by this limud from the word lapar. Bzeh par helam davar shel tzibur. A second time that it should be like it's explicit there. Okay, the Gemara now brings a source from where we see in the Braisa like the way Rav Papa interpreted this. Tani Kava say that Rav Papa, so we learned in the Braisa like Rav Papa said, this pasuk here of lapar that we're darshaning, so the Braisa brings the beginning of that pasuk, va'asa kasher asa. The actual pasuk says, va'asa lapar kasher asa lapar achatas. So this pasuk is extra. Ma tamad loimar. What is this pasuk coming to teach? So the word lapar is saying as follows. So ma tamad loimar lapar. That one word lapar, what is it coming to say? Lefisha nemar. So now here we go to the side of Avodah Zarah. It says by the parsha of the goat that's brought in Avodah Zarah, this is in Parshas Shlach, that v'heim heviu as karbonom isha lashem v'gomer. So if you look there in the continuation of the pasuk, there's also a completely extra part in that pasuk. What does it say there in that pasuk? That v'heim heviu as karbonom isha lashem, and then the pasuk goes on to say v'chatasam lifnei Hashem al shigagasam. Those words, v'chatasam lefnei Hashem v'shigasam, is extra. It says already before there in the pasuk. V'nislach lehem, v'nislach lehem kishgagihi v'hem mevias karbanim. The Eibusher will forgive them for the shegig that they served Avodah Zarah b'shegig, and they brought their carbon. What are these added words? V'chatasam lefnei Hashem al shigasam. So what we darshan from this is, says the Braisa, chatasam. When it says here the term chatasam, so elusir avedas kachavim. The chatas is the aveda b'shegig over here regarding Avodah Zarah. That's the term that it says by Avodah Zarah, that he sinned b'shegig, the term chatos. Okay, that's this parsha. Now, when it says the term shigigasam, what is this term shigigasam adding? Ze par helam davar shel tzibur. That's referring to a different case, to the par helam davar shel tzibur. How do I know? So Rashi brings, because in the parsha where it speaks about the par helam davar shel tzibur, the Torah uses that expression. It says there, v'im kol adas Yisrael yishgu. So shigigasam refers to the par helam davar shel tzibur. Okay, so now what does the pasuk mean here with this extra words? Chatasam lifnei Hashem al shigagasam. So when it says chatasam al shigagasam, it means here's the hekish. Omra Torah, the Torah is saying chatasam, this carbon, the goat that you're bringing here for someone that served Avodah Zarah, harehi lecha kishigagasam. Compare it to another carbon which is called shigagasam, which is what? The par helam davar shel tzibur. Okay, so now the problem though is, and here the Gemara addresses the same point that we addressed before that explained according to Rav Papa. Shigigasam, now regarding the case of the par helam davashal tzibor, mehechal amadata. From where did you learn out the details that you're now trying to learn out for the side of Avodah Zarah? Loi behekish, didn't you learn it out from a hekish? Again, we're referring to the Yiseres and the Shtei Kloyos. These details of the what has to be burnt on the Mizbeach, that does not say explicitly by the Par Helam Davashal Tzibor. You only know it with a hekish from the parsha before, the Par Koyim Mashiach. So if so, the rule is v'chidavar alamed behekish chayzer malamed behekish. If you only know it by the Par Helam Davashal Tzibor with a hekish, could you now make a secondary hekish to the side of Avodah Zarah in this hekish of chatasam al shigagasam? You can't do that. So therefore, Talmud Laima lapar ze par helam davashal tzibor, and lapar ze par koyim Mashiach. It says twice in that pasuk lapar. It says va'asa lapar kasha asa lapar. Do for this par, which is the par helam davashal tzibor, like the par koyim Mashiach. So there's a second hekesh over here to say that now it's as if it says these details of the Yiseres and Shtei Klois explicitly by the par helam davashal tzibor. So if it says it here explicitly, so now you have your hekish that you can make to the side of Avodah Zarah that you have to be makriv of the Yiseres and Shtei Klois. Exactly the point that Rav Papa said to explain the drasha that Rabbi Shmuel said. Okay, but now the Gemara asks on this and clarifies, oh mamar. So what did it say here in this brayso that we just quoted? Chatasam elu seidei avodas kechavim. When it says over here in the Parsha Shlach, that extra word, and it says v'chatasam lefnei Hashem shigagasam. So the chatasam refers to the seira avodas kechavim, and we're learning it out that it should have the same halacha like the par helam davashal tzibur. That's the hekesh there of chatasam to shigagasam. The question though is, why do you have to learn it out with this hekesh of these extra words of Parsha Shlach? Typically, mikra kama. You should learn it out from an extra word that's there in the pasuk much earlier in Parshas Vayikra. Because as we quoted earlier in the Braisa on Daf Lamed Tes, in this pasuk that we're discussing here, again, this is the extra pasuk in the parsha of the par helam davashal tzibur v'asa lapar kasha asa lapar achatos ken yasaloi v'chipar aleim akayim v'nislach lahem. That pasuk, they quoted here on the side in Ois Aleph. That entire pasuk is extra, and the Gemara before in Daf Lamed Tes brought a Braisa to explain every single word of this pasuk. One of the things that Braisa says is the word when it says lapar hachatos. What is the hachatos coming to say? So the Tana before said that hachatos is l'rabbis sirei avodas kechavim. It's coming to say that the goat that's brought for the chatos of Avodah Zarah should be the same like the par helam davashal tzibur. So the question is, why do we need the hekish in Parshas Shalach comparing chatasam to shigagasam? Chatasam being the side of Avodah Zarah, comparing to shigagasam being par helam davashal tzibur. In this parsha of par helam davashal tzibur itself, in Parshas Vayikra, when it says the word ha-chatas, that means the chatas of the side of Avodah Zarah. Rav Papa answers, it's tzrich. It's still necessary to have the hekish in Parshas Shalach. Because I would think to say, Hani mili hazois tichsivim begufei. I would think that maybe the hekesh should only be for the details of how you spray the blood in the mizbeach, that it says clearly over here by the par helam davashal tzibur. You bring the blood inside the Beis Hamikdash, you spray 7 times towards the pareiches, 4 times in the mizbeach hapnimi. Only those details is that hekesh referring to when it says the term hachatas. But regarding the Yiseres and the Shtei Kloyes, that it does not say clearly there. In the parsha of Helam Davashal Tzibur, I would think that you don't have a hekesh for it. Kamash Malon, so therefore you have the extra hekesh of Chatasam al Shigagasam that it says in Parsha Shalach to say that the hekesh refers to this second point as well. And how can we make that hekesh? Based on what the Gemara said before, that because it says twice to compare this halacha of Yisteres and Shtei Kloyes to the Par Helam Davashal Tzibur, so it's as if that's mefurish by the Par Helam Davashal Tzibur, and now I can make a second hekish to learn out the Yisteres and Shtei Kloyes that to be makted this on the Mizbeach applies to the side of Avodah Zarah as well. That's the pshat in the limud that Rabbi Shmuel said regarding this inyan. Okay, this is the conclusion of explaining this detail, how Rabbi Shmuel darshan that word of lapad in this pasuk and comparing it to the side of Avodah Zarah that it says in Parsha Shlach. Okay, but now the Gemara goes back to another detail that it spoke about before on Daf Mem regarding the drasha. Another detail. Again, this is all addressing this extra pasuk here. For asa lapar kasher asa lapar achatos. So there was another detail that the Gemara darshan before on Daf Mem, that when it says va'asa lapar, what is this pasuk coming to say? It's referring to, this is not Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. This is going back to a brayso that the Gemara brought before on Daf Lamed Tes. When it says v'asa lapar, it's coming to actually teach me that the par of Yom Kippur should be learned out from this parsha. Again, this parsha here is the par helem dova shel tzibur. And when it says v'asa lapar, we're learning out that the par of Yom Kippur should be referred to the par helem dova shel tzibur. So the Gemara before had a discussion, what exactly are we trying to learn out regarding the par of Yom Kippur? What don't we know by the par of Yom Kippur that we're learning out from here? So the Gemara tried to say that what we're learning out is the detail of li'ikuva, that the details of the blood that has to be sprayed inside the Beis HaMikdash, that it's a must. Every single detail of those azayis is ma'akiv. That's what the Gemara tried to say. But the Gemara before said, the Gemara refuted that and said, I don't need to have a special limud to say that every detail by Yom Kippur that's done is ma'akiv, because by Yom Kippur in Parshas Achrei Mos, the Torah uses the term chukah, zois chukas. The term chukah always means that it's ma'akiv, so you don't have to learn out that it's ma'akiv. And the Gemara over there tried to bring another pshat. The Gemara said that it's coming to teach certain details that it did not say in Parshas Achrei Mos. What are those details that it didn't say in Parshas Achrei Mos? Exactly how it is that you spray the blood. That has to be done with the finger, and there has to be enough blood inside. Those small details being done with the finger, the Gemara says before you learn that from Es, Badam, Tefillah, those details it didn't say clearly. That's what it's coming to teach. And that's how Rav Papa explained this inyan. Okay. So now the Gemara comes back to that, and it says that not necessarily we see from the lashon of a brayso that was quoted before that the pshat of Rav Papa is not true. Why? Amalei Rav Hona bereid Rav Nosson Rav Papa. The Tana of the brayso that was quoted before on Daf Mem Amud Beis. So the Gemara before brings a brayso. This is actually the way Rebbe in a brayso says this before. So what's the lashon that it says there? It says Par Yom HaKippurim. I learn out the Par Yom HaKippurim from the Par Helm Dova Shel Tzibur L'chol Ma Shenemar Be'inyan. For everything that it says there, Ka'omar. That's the lashon that he says. So what's Rav Hona Bereid Rav Nosson asking? What he's asking is, Rav Papa says, you don't really learn out everything from the Par Helem Dov Shel Tzibur. It's not necessary to learn out everything. Why? Because the fact that we see that by the Par Helem Dov Shel Tzibur, that all the details that have to be done with the blood inside the Beis HaMikdash is a must, it's ma'akiv, that I do not have to learn out for Yom Kippur. That I see by Yom Kippur itself. It says the term chukah there. What do I have to learn out for the Par Yom Kippurim from the Par Helem Dova Shel Tzibur? Only the certain minute details regarding the finger, how the blood is placed on the mizbeach with the finger. So Rav Hona Bereid Rav Nosson is asking Rav Papa, but the language of the brayso that was quoted before in Daf Mem, when it says that you learn out the Par Yom Kippur from the Par Helem Dova Shel Tzibur, is a very strong lashon. It says l'chol mashan omar be'inyan ka'amar, which sounds like it's saying that we actually are comparing the Par Yom Kippurim to every detail, to every point of what it says by the Par Helem Dova Shel Tzibur, including this, that it's ma'akiv, that without doing every single detail, it's going to be ma'akiv. So how could Rav Papa say that for that, I don't need the hekish, or I don't need the limud, that is? So the Gemara answers that it's a machlokes tanoim. There's a machlokes tanoim regarding this inyan. Tana debei Rav, Mei Rebbe. There's the Tana debei Rav that was brought before. Mei Rebbe, sorry, not Mei Rebbe. Let me read that again. Tana debei Rav, Marbi Hachi. The Tana debei Rav, Taka learns out like the lashon of the brayso that you're bringing over here. That we're marba, we learn out every single detail. Okay, so this is the Tana debei. When the Gemara here says Tana debei Rav, it's going back to the original brayso that was quoted already on Daf Lamed Tes. On Daf Lamed Tes was the original brayso where it brought all the details that you learn out from this pasuk. So that Tana debei Rav, Rashi says over here, it's called Tana debei Rav. This is a brayso in Toras Kohanim. Toras Kohanim is called Tana debei Rav. So that Toras Kohanim, which is Tana debei Rav, that takamarbe, they learn out the Par Yom Kippurim from the Par Helem Dova Shel Tzibur, everything, all the details. But Tana debei Rabbi Shmuel, loy marbi achi. The Tana debei Rabbi Shmuel is not marbe this way. We're not learning out all the details. We only learn out one detail regarding the finger, regarding the halachas on Yom Kippur, how the blood is placed with the finger on the Mizbeach. Right, so this is a different version of the Teres Kainim. Only by the Talmidim of Rabbi Shmuel they taught it this way. Not everybody learned it this way. Tana Debei Rav was the Teres Kainim the way everybody learned it, and by the Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel, they learned it differently. Okay, let me just correct what I said. I'm looking into Rashi here. The pshat is exactly like I said, but just the other way around. The Tana Debei Rav is the one that are only marbe the details of the finger, of how it has to be placed on the Mizbeach. The Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel, they're the ones that learn everything out, not only the details of the finger, but also all the details of chukah, you don't have chukah actually, or the leikuve, that by Yom Kippur, it's ma'akiv, that's also learned out from the Par Helm Dov Shel Tzibur. It's a little bit hard to learn the Gemara here, where it's continuing a discussion from Daf Lamed Tes, and we're holding already on Daf Mem Aleph. Okay, let's go weiter. Talk to Gemara, Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel. Another thing we learned by Rabbi Shmuel, Mipnei Ma Nemru, why is it that it says, Yiseres Ushtei Kloyois Bepar Koyim Mashiach? By the Par Koyim Mashiach, the Torah spells out more details. It says there what you have to burn on the Mizbeach from the carbon, and it spells out the diaphragm and the two kidneys that are brought and burnt on the Mizbeach. But right away afterwards, in the next parsha, where it speaks about the Par Helm Dov Shel Tzibur, which is when most of the Yidden sinned, based on what Bezdin Paskind, V'lo nemru b'Par Helm Dov Shel Tzibur. Over here, it does not say these details. Why not? Says the Gemara, Moshel Melech Basav Adam, the analogy of a king, Shazam al Oyevai, when he gets angry at his friend, but nevertheless, he minimizes when he speaks about what his friend did to offend him. He doesn't speak about it too much at length because of his love that he has for his friend, even in a time when his friend did sin against him. So to here, because it's speaking about all the Yidden that sin, which are the beloved of the Eibishter, so therefore even when the Torah speaks about the carbon, it speaks more bekitzer. It doesn't mention all the details of what has to be brought as a carbon. The Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel, another thing that they taught by Rabbi Shmuel, Mipnei Ma Nemra, Pareches HaKodesh Bepar Koyim Mashiach. In the first parsha where it speaks about the carbon that the Koyim Mashiach has to bring, it refers to spraying the blood in the Pareches, and it refers to it as Pareches HaKodesh, the holy Pareches. But V'lei Nemar Bepar Helm Dov Shel Tzibur. But by the Par Helm Dov Shel Tzibur, there the pasuk says also that you spray Lufnei, but it says Lufnei Hashem is Penei Pareches. It doesn't say the word Kodesh. The answer is, again, Moshel Melech Basav Adam, Shesarcha Olav Medina. The entire country is sinned against the king. If it was only the minority that sinned against the king, so then the king and his advisors are going to still be in a good relationship. The king trusts his advisors. Things in the country are still running, even though there's a minority that sinned against him. But if the majority of the country is rebelling or sinning against the king, then and the king and his advisors and his people that are close to him already they lose trust in them. So therefore, over here it doesn't use the term Kodesh, because in this parsha it's speaking about when most of Klal Yisrael followed what the Bezdin said and sinned. So you see over here these two Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuels in a way are saying sort of two opposites. The first Tana Debei Rabbi Shmuel is trying to point out how the love of the Eibishter for Yidden is still there even when all the Klal Yisrael sin, because Hashem loves Yidden. And the second one is actually pointing out that over here the Eibishter takes out the word Kodesh because all Yidden are sinning, so you can't say Kodesh anymore. It's difficult to say the word Kodesh. Sort of two opposite points, right?
By taking out Kodesh, it makes the Aveda not so big because
maybe. Okay, but the concept over here is, according to Chassidus, the Palmalia Shalmaila refers to the levels of Seder Shtalshalus above. The different levels above that, when you have the Avedis of all the Klal Yisrael, so you take out that word Kedusha, Kodesh, but the essence of the love of the Eibishter, Adarabah, it doesn't change. It doesn't get affected at all. And that's why it's Mekatzer, even when all the Klal Yisrael sins. So both points are true. Okay, weiter, the Gemara continues with the next piece of the Mishnah. It speaks about the karbonis chatas that are brought inside the Beis HaMikdash and has to be sprayed on the Mizbeach. What did the Mishnah say? Those carbon chatas that have to be brought inside the Beis HaMikdash, Every single hazah that's done, whether by the pareiches, whether on the mizbech, each one of them is ma'akiv. The Mishnah went on to say, so lefichach, therefore, im nasan kulan ketiknon, if he sprayed all of the blood on the mizbeach properly with the right kavanah, but then, let's say hamshachad lashon the Mishnah, but then after that, va'achas shaloi ketikna, but one of them he sprayed not with the right kavanah, meaning that he's thinking that it's going to be shaloi bizmanoi, it's going to passel a machshava of pigul. So the Mishnah says psula ve'en bakaris. It's going to be passel. It's not going to be, the carbon is not going to become pigul. Why not? Because in order for a carbon to be pigul, the machshava of pigul has to be by the entire aveda, the entire matter that you're doing. Since over here, every detail of the blood that you spray inside the Beis HaMikdash is ma'akiv, so if you have the machshava of pigul only by 1, 2, 3, but not by all of it, so it's a machshava of pigul by a chatzi matter, only by half of what you brought. So therefore, it's not going to be pigul; it's only going to be pasel. Okay, so the Gemara starts with the Mishnah Masechta Menachos, and then it comes back to our Mishnah. Tanan Asam, the Mishnah Masechta Menachos said regarding a carbon mincha. So over here, by the carbon mincha, there are two things that have to be burnt on the mizbeach in order to be mater to eat from it. So that what are the two things? There's the kaimitz. There's a part that the kain takes a fistful to burn on the mizbeach, and then there's also the levina, frankincense, that has to be burnt in the mizbeach. So now pigul bekaimetz, that if the kain had a machshava of pigul when he was burning the kaimitz on the mizbeach. But v'loi b'levina, but not by the levina, or the opposite. B'levina, he had the machshav of pigul when he was burning the levina of the mizbech. But v'loi b'kaimitz, but not by the kaimitz. Rav Meir aim a pigul. Rav Meir says it'll still be pigul. V'chayav and all of kares. So therefore, if you eat from this afterwards, there'll be chayav kares like the halacha with pigul is. The chachamim ma'imrem, however, chachamim say aim by kares achi yifagel b'chol hamater. Since over here you have to be makter two on the mizbeach, the kaimitz and the levina, it won't be pigul unless you had the machshava of pigul by both of them, the entire matter that's then matter you to eat from the mincha. So the Gemara now focuses on the opinion of Rab Meir. Why is Rab Meir arguing? Oh, but Rab Shimon ben Lakish, Rab Shimon ben Lakish explains, Loi taimeh. So don't think, as it would seem superficially here, that taimeh that Rab Meir, the reason why Rab Meir says it will be pigul is because the kasava Rab Meir holds mefaglin b'chatzi mater, that pigul could take effect even if the machshava of pigul was only by half of what has to be brought in the mizbeach to be mater, either only the kaimitz or only the levina. No, that's not the explanation of Rab Meir's opinion. Ella, rather, what Rab Meir is saying over here is in the following case. He burned the kaimitz on the mizbeach having that machshava of pigul, and then va'alevina b'shtiken. But then when he brings the levina on the mizbeach here, he didn't have any machshava, and he's just bringing it down without a machshava of pigul. But the first thing that he did though was with the machshava of pigul. The Gemara uses the example that he was makta the kaimitz first, but it could also be that he was makta the levina first. But the point is that the first thing was with the machshava of pigul, and then what he followed and did afterwards was without that machshava. So Kesava Rav Meir holds that Kol ha'oiseh, when you do something, and there's two parts, there's two components to the action that you're doing, al das rishayna hu oiseh. What comes second is following the machshava that the person had first. And therefore over here, what the Meir is saying is, this is considered to be that there was a pigul in the whole entire matter, in the whole entire thing. Even though he didn't explicitly have that machshava of pigul in the whole thing, but since in the beginning he had that machshava of pigul, the action that follows is going to be an action that comes in continuation to the original machshava that he had in the beginning. So it's all going to be pigul. That's Rav Meir's opinion. So Rashi here's a Rashi, this is a famous Rashi, because Rashi here says that the Rabbanan disagree with this, because the Rabbanan say that pigul is not only b'machshava, pigul is ba'amira, that the person says that I'm bringing this carbon in order to be eat shalei bizmanai. So therefore the Rabbanan say what you set it for is where the pigul is, but the next thing where you did not say it, there's no pigul. So I don't connect how you started to what you continued. It's two separate things. So it's from this Rashi that you see that the inyan of pigul is ba'amira, when you say it, not only when you think it. Okay, the other Rishonim disagree with this, but that's what Rashi says over here. Okay, so now the Gemara says, now we come back to our Mishnah. From where do I know that this is the explanation for Rab Meir's opinion? What's our source? Midiktani, because of what it says in our Mishnah here. That the carbon chatos that has to all be brought inside, the blood that's sprayed inside, and you need to do all of them. It's all ma'akiv. So Therefore, the Mishnah says that if you placed one ketiknon with a proper machshava, and then afterwards not properly with the machshava of pigel, pasul. Ve'ein by kares, it'll only be pasul and there'll be no kares. Why? Because you didn't have the machshava of pigel in the entire thing, and all of it is ma'akiv. All of it is necessary for this hazah inside. So now the Gemara is medayik for this Mishnah. What's the order that it says this in? That the first one he gave ketikna, the first one he sprayed the blood properly, and afterwards it was shalei ketikna. So it's mashma, but what if it would be the other way around? If the first machshava he had was he sprayed the blood not properly, meaning he had the machshava of pigel, that he's going to eat this carbon shalei zmanei. And then the kulon ketiknon, and then what he did following that was ketiknon properly, meaning he didn't think any machshava of pigel. Then pigel, then it will be pigel. Even though he didn't think explicitly the machshava of pigel by all of them, but he had the first machshava of pigel. And then what he did afterwards was bishtika, as the Gemara called it before. He didn't think any machshava of pigel. It's still all going to become pigel. So now, Mani, who is the Tana of our Mishnah? If you would say, according to what we quoted from Menachos, if you would say that our Mishnah is the Rabbanan, but that can't be because Amri Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say, Ein mefaglim b'chatzi mater, that you could never have a concept of pigel if his machshava of pigel was only by half of the mater, half of the zrika that he was doing here. It doesn't make a difference what he thought first, what he thought second. According to the Rabbanan, there's never such a thing. So the way we were medayik the Mishnah, it cannot be the Rabbanan. Ella says the Gemara Rab Meir, so the Mishnah must be the opinion of Rab Meir that says that there is a possibility for this inyan of mefaglim b'chatzi mater. But when is that though? Now so the Gemara explains. But if you're going to now say that according to Rab Meir, any time you had the machshava of pigel by half of the aveda, half of the mater, doesn't matter if that half was the first or if that half was second. I would always say that half, machshava of pigel by half makes it pigel. So then, afilik ediktani nami. So then, why is the Mishnah saying that if your machshava of pigel came second, then it will not be pigel? Why not? Doesn't make a difference if your machshava of pigel came first or your machshava of pigel came second. Even if your machshava of pigel was only by half of the zrike, it should be pigel. What would we medayik? We medayik from the Mishnah that if your machshava of pigel was second, then it will not be pigel. But if your machshava of pigel was first, then it will be pigel. So what do we see? So we see the point, the way Reish Lakish explained Rab Meir. So Lav, don't you see from here that Mishum de Kasavar, that the Tana of this Mishnah is Rab Meir, and Rab Meir holds Kala Oiseh al Das Rishayna Hu Oiseh, that you have to go according to what was the first machshava or the first dibur that he said when he brought the carbon. So therefore, if the first machshava was kosher, so then the machshava of pigel that he has afterwards is only half. So it's not going to take effect to be pigel. But if the first machshava or dibur was pigel, so then al das rishayna, the continuation of the aveda, will be pigel. This is the proof to the point of Reish Lakish, the way he explained of Meir's opinion. So Rab Shmuel bar Yitzchak says, no, I can tell you that you got the pshat in this Mishnah all wrong. It's saying something completely different. La'olam Rabbanani. Really, this Mishnah is not Rab Meir B'chlal. It's Rabbanan's opinion. What does it mean when the Mishnah, this lashon, when it says that im nosan kulan ketiknon, that you placed all the blood ketiknon besides right? What does it say in the Mishnah? Nosan kulan ketiknon va'achas shalei ketiknon. So how did we understand till now? What does ketiknon mean? Ketiknon means properly with a good machshava. What does shalei ketiknon mean? With a machshava of pigel. But now Rab Shmuel bar Yitzchak says no. Actually, the pshat here is the opposite. Ketiknon means lepigel. Ketikna means that the first machshava was actually for pigel, and then afterwards shalei ketikna means that it was not pigel. That's what it means over here. In the context, I mean, ketikna usually means done properly, but in this context, ketikna means for it to be pigel to take effect, that the pigel should take effect. That's what ketikna means. So Adarabah. So what this Mishnah is coming to say is exactly the point that the Rabbanan are saying, that even though his first machshava was pigel, and then afterwards it was not pigel. So you may think, like the svara that Reish Lakish just said, that once his first machshava was pigel, what you do afterwards follows the first machshava. But no, the Chachamim say there's no such thing. The pigel will only become pigel if you have that explicit machshava of pigel throughout the entire aveda. So therefore, even though the first machshava was pigel, that's what ketikna means, and then afterwards it was not pigel, it does not take effect the pigel. So this is according to the Rabbanan. So, but we don't have a proof for what the explanation of Rab Meir's opinion is. But the Gemara asks on this, it doesn't really fit into the lashon of the Mishnah. Even if you could squeeze that into the word ketiknan, but over here ketiknan does not mean like it usually means. Ketiknan usually means done right. Over here ketiknan means for the tikkun of the pigel, that it should be effective for pigel. But when it says shaloi ketiknan, it doesn't fit into that. But the Mishnah actually says lafichach imnas an kulan ketiknan. You did everything properly. So let's say, okay, that means for pigel. But va'achas shaloi ketikna. And then one afterwards was shaloi ketikna. Then the Mishnah says pasal vein by kares. So what does this lashon of shaloi ketikna mean? If what you're saying is that ketikna means for pigel, so it shouldn't say shaloi ketikna. It should say, and the rest was done b'shtika. The rest was done without thinking any other machshava. What is this shaloi ketikna? Shaloi ketikna sounds like it wasn't done right. So miklal, so from that language, I see that the tikna lachsheiru hudasa. The word tikna means that it was actually done right, not right for pigel to be effective. Right kipshutai, right that it should be a good carbon. Just like shaloi ketikna, here shaloi ketikna means not right, and that would mean pigel. So tikna should mean the way we teach it lechatchil, the way we always teach it, which is that it should be done right. Therefore, it's difficult to say this pshat that Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak said in the Mishnah. But the Gemara says no, we could actually say as follows. Omar Rav explains, no, we could still say the pshat that the Gemara said here, that ketikna means pigel, that he had the first machshava of pigel. So my shalei ketikna. Then when it says that the next machshava was shalei ketikna, why doesn't the Mishnah just simply say that the next machshava was b'shtike? What does shalei ketikna mean? It means chutz l'mekaymai. The first machshava he had was chutz l'zmaneh, which is the machshava of pigel that makes the carbon completely puzzle to the point that you chayiv kares if you eat from it. The next machshava was not the machshava of pigel, it was the machshava of chutz l'mekaymai. Also puzzles, but it doesn't make it pigel. Right, and this is the halacha that we had before in the Masechta, that in order for a carbon to become pigel, that you should be chayiv kares if you eat from it. When is that? Only if it's exclusively the machshava of pigel, not if there's also another machshava of psul. That's what it means when it says shalei ketikna. So we could still say like the pshat that Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak is saying, like the Rabbanon. The first machshava was pigel, the second machshava was chutz l'mekaymai, and because not the entire matter was that one machshava of chutz l'zmaneh, which is the real pigel, therefore the pigel does not take effect. Or Rav Ashi says similar, when it says shalei ketikna, what does it mean? Shalei l'shmai. That the second machshava was to be makriv the carbon shalei l'shma, which in certain cases could passel, by the chatos and the pesach it could passel. The first machshava was pigel, shalei b'zmana, and the second machshava was shalei ketikna, but not a proper pigel. It was shalei ketikna, but it doesn't make it pigel. It ruins the pigel because now you mixed in another machshava, and you don't have the whole machshava or the whole entire matter, the whole avodah, just with the machshava of pigel. That's the pshat of the Mishnah. Okay, but the Gemara says, but if that's how you're teaching it, then you're back to the proof that Reish Lakish said. Why? Because then I can deduce from the Mishnah as follows. If so, let's learn out from this. That if the first machshava was pigel, and then the avodah afterwards, he didn't have any other machshava. It was just done b'shtike, like the case that Rab Meir was talking about, the way Reish Lakish explained Rab Meir. You didn't have no machshava chutz l'mekayin shalei l'shmai. Then mechayev, then the pigel will take effect. So that's again the point that Rab Meir said. As long as the machshava harishayna was pigel, what he does following that follows what he thought in the beginning. So it still proves the point that Reish Lakish says. So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. I can tell you that even then it will not be pigel. According to we can say it won't be pigel like the Gemara is explaining here according to the Rabbanon. So why does it say specifically this case of chutz l'mekaymai? Because I did the Tani Reisha pigel v'chayav olav kares, because in the Reisha of the Mishnah, when it said this halacha, so it said over there pigel v'chayav olav kares. So over there in the Reisha of the Mishnah, it spoke about this kind of a case. Right, so in the Reish of the Mishnah, it spoke about the bloods that are sprayed on the chitzayni, on the mizbeach hachitzen. So over there, it said this lashon of pigel, chutz l'zmana. Over there, the Mishnah says that nosan es l'shayne ketikna v'sashniya chutz l'zmana. So it's going to be pigul chayav and all of kadis. So because in the reisha of the Mishnah it uses this kind of lashon, so tananami seife pasol ve'em by kadis. So therefore it chooses this kind of example in the seifa also, where it says pasol ve'em by kadis. It's similar to what it says in the reisha. That's the only reason why it chooses this kind of example of chutzlas manai and chutzla mekaymai, that the chutzla mekaymai takes out from the chutzlas manai. But otherwise, it's the diak over here that we're making to prove from Rab Meir is not a diak b'chlal, because this Mishnah here goes according to the Rabbanon.